It was a Thursday evening, and he came home later than usual. Tie loosened, shirt untucked, eyes darting anywhere but mine. He mumbled something about a client emergency and grabbed a plate of the cold dinner I'd left on the stove. I didn't question it right away. I wanted to, but I'd been down that road before. The one where I sound paranoid and he gets quiet, defensive. Maybe even turns it around on me. So, I swallowed the knot in my throat and just said, "Rough night?" He nodded, barely looking up from his food. "Yeah, we've got a new project deadline. It's just a lot right now." He always said that lately. It's just a lot right now. Those words had started to sound like a wall between us. We used to talk about everything, little things, like how his coffee never tasted the same unless I made it, or how he'd hum old rock songs when he was in a good mood. Lately, though, it was just silence. Long, heavy silence. After dinner, he went straight to his office, said he had to check a few emails. I cleaned up the plates alone, listening to the hum of the dishwasher and the faint tapping of his keyboard. At least, that's what I thought it was, his keyboard. Around 10, he came out, kissed me on the forehead, a quick, mechanical kind of kiss, and said, "I might have to stay late again tomorrow. We're trying to close a deal before quarter's end." I forced a smile, nodding like a supportive wife should. "Okay, honey, don't overwork yourself." He smiled back, but it didn't reach his eyes. Then he went to bed early, leaving his phone on the nightstand, screen down. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, my chest tight. It wasn't just suspicion, it was instinct, that sick, heavy feeling that something was very, very wrong. I tried to tell myself I was imagining things, that I was tired or insecure, but his distance had become too consistent. The late nights, the vague explanations, the faint scent of unfamiliar perfume once, the kind that didn't belong in an office. I remember whispering to myself in the dark, "If you have to look for proof, you already know." But I didn't want to know. The next day, when he left for work, I watched him from the window. He didn't even glance back at the house, just got in his car, talking on the phone, smiling. That's when something in me snapped. I opened his laptop, the one he always kept password protected, but this time he'd forgotten to log out of his email. I didn't find messages, but I did find something else. A GPS tracker app he used for work deliveries. My heart thudded as I stared at it. I don't even know what I was expecting to find. Maybe I wanted reassurance. Maybe I wanted to prove myself wrong. But as I sat there, hand trembling over the mouse, I decided that if he said he was working late again that night, I was going to check. And that decision, that one tiny trembling click, would change everything. He texted around 6 that evening. "Gonna be late again, don't wait up." No heart emoji, no call, just that cold, efficient, like he was replying to a co-worker. I sat there staring at my phone, rereading the message until the words blurred. My chest felt tight, but my hands were steady. Too steady. It was like some quiet part of me had already made peace with what I was about to find. I opened the GPS app he used for work, the one that showed real-time location tracking. His little white dot sat downtown for a while, at the office where he usually worked. I almost closed the app right there, ashamed of myself for not trusting him. I even laughed, a bitter, shaky kind of laugh. But then, around 7, that dot started moving. I watched it in silence, following the line on the screen as it slid away from his office, not toward any client's address, not toward home. It was heading west. I zoomed in, tracing the streets. He passed the main road, then the highway, and then stopped in a residential neighborhood. My breath hitched. I zoomed closer, tapping on the map. It wasn't an office park. It was a street lined with houses, quiet, suburban, tucked away from the city. For a moment, I couldn't move. I just sat there staring at that white dot, frozen on some stranger's driveway. Every heartbeat echoed in my ears. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe it was a client's home. Maybe he was helping someone. Maybe I was being crazy again. But I wasn't. Something deep in my gut told me that. I clicked satellite view, and my screen filled with the image of a small 2-story house, blue siding, white shutters. A car sat in the driveway, his car. That was when my vision blurred. I could actually feel the blood drain from my face. For a second, I thought I might faint. I called him, once, twice, straight to voicemail. I stared at the phone, at that little dot that didn't move. My husband, the man who said he was working late, the man who'd kissed me goodbye that morning, was parked outside a house I'd never seen before, ignoring my calls. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my keys. I don't even remember locking the door or putting on shoes. The whole drive there was a blur. Headlights, traffic lights, my own voice in my head whispering, "Please, God, let this not be what I think it is." I parked a few houses down, engine off, heart pounding so hard it hurt. His car was still there, parked in front of that blue house with the white shutters. Every logical thought told me to leave, to go home, to wait, to not do something I'd regret. But my body had already made the choice for me. I needed to see. I needed to know. And when I stepped out of the car, the night air cold against my skin, I realized this wasn't curiosity. It was grief in motion. I parked half a block away and sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my fingers ached. The house looked normal, calm, even peaceful. Porch light on, curtains drawn, a small pumpkin by the door. It could have been anyone's home. But the sight of his car in that driveway turned the whole scene into something poisonous. I got out slowly. The air was cool, but my palms were slick with sweat. My body felt numb, moving on its own, as if my heart had already checked out and left my instincts in charge. Every step I took toward that house felt like stepping off a cliff. When I reached the sidewalk in front of it, I hesitated. The front window had a faint glow, yellow, warm. Through the thin curtains, I could see silhouettes moving. One of them looked like him. The slope of his shoulders, the way he tilted his head when he laughed. It was all too familiar. Then I saw her. She was younger, maybe late 20s. Long hair, dark and loose around her shoulders. She stood close to him, too close, her hand brushing his arm as she said something that made him smile. Smile. That smile I hadn't seen in months. I don't know how long I stood there. It felt like my entire life was collapsing in slow motion, right there on that quiet street where nobody else seemed to notice a thing. When she leaned up and kissed him, softly, casually, like it wasn't the first time, something inside me snapped. My knees went weak. I actually stumbled back a step, catching myself on the hood of my car. My throat burned, my chest clenched, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. He kissed her back. Not hesitantly, not like a mistake, like it was routine, like it was home. I bit my lips so hard it drew blood. My vision blurred, but I refused to cry. Not there, not on that street where he was building his new little world. I just turned, walked back to my car, and sat there in silence. I watched for another 20 minutes. They ate dinner together. She poured him a drink. They laughed, the kind of laughter that used to fill our kitchen. I remembered making him those same stupid cocktails when we first got married. How he'd tell me I used too much ice, and I'd roll my eyes. It all came flooding back, every good memory now soaked in betrayal. When he finally got up and headed toward the door, I ducked down, my heart slamming against my ribs. He came out alone, phone in hand, glancing around before getting into his car. I thought he might see me, but he didn't. He just sat there a moment, scrolling, smiling faintly, and then drove off. Back toward the office, probably, to keep up the lie. I sat there for a long time after he left. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely type, but I took a photo of the house, the address, the license plate, everything. I didn't even know why. Maybe part of me needed proof that I wasn't crazy, that it really happened. That address, 42 Westfield Lane, burned itself into my mind that night. I could never forget it, no matter how much I wished I could. When I finally drove home, it was past midnight. I parked in the driveway, walked into our silent house, and just stood there in the dark. Everything looked the same, the couch, the family photos, his jacket on the chair. But it all felt hollow. And as I stared at our wedding photo on the wall, his arm around me, smiling like he meant it, I realized the man in that picture no longer existed. The next day, I woke up feeling like my body had been hit by something heavy. My mind was a blur of images from the night before. That blue house, the way he laughed, her hand on his arm. It all replayed like some cruel movie I couldn't turn off. He came home just after sunrise, smelling faintly of cologne and stale coffee. "Sorry," he said casually, hanging up his coat. "We were troubleshooting a server issue. I didn't want to wake you." He kissed my cheek like nothing had happened. Like the night before, he hadn't been with someone else. I just stood there, frozen, my stomach twisting so violently I thought I might throw up. I looked at him, really looked at him, and all I could think was how easily he lied. His tone, his body language, everything was practiced. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't fumbling. He'd been doing this long enough to be comfortable. I remember asking, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking, "Where did you have dinner last night?" He looked up from his coffee mug, a flicker of something, maybe surprise in his eyes. Just grabbed something with the team. Why?" "With the team?" I repeated quietly. "Yeah." He gave that half smile again, the one that used to make me melt, but now just made me sick. "You okay? You sound weird." I nodded, forcing a smile. "Just tired." Inside, I was breaking, but I didn't let him see it. Not yet. I needed to understand how deep this went, how long he'd been lying to me, how many nights he'd walked out of our home to go play house with someone else. That night, I followed him again. He left around 6:30, same excuse. "Don't wait up, babe." I watched him from my car, parked a few houses down, as he pulled out of the driveway. The GPS confirmed what I already knew. That stupid little white dot moved straight back to her house. This time, I didn't stay outside. I parked across the street, far enough to stay in the shadows, but close enough to see through those thin curtains again. They were in the living room, laughing. She poured wine, handed him a glass. He looked happy, relaxed. The version of him I hadn't seen in years. At one point she leaned in, whispered something, and he kissed her forehead. I could almost hear her laugh. Light, soft, untroubled. And in that moment, something inside me cracked so sharply I had to bite down on my sleeve to keep from crying out loud. I'd spent years taking care of him, picking up after his long nights, making excuses when he forgot birthdays, dinners, anniversaries. I'd loved him through everything. And now, watching him smile at someone else in a way he hadn't smiled at me in months, it felt like I'd died, and he just hadn't noticed. When the lights in the house dimmed, I saw them move toward the hallway. His arm was around her waist. That was when I turned away. I didn't need to see the rest. I already knew. I sat there for a long time, the world quiet except for the ticking of my car's clock. I wanted to scream, to bang on that door, to drag him out and demand an answer. But all I did was sit and stare at that house, realizing I was the only one still fighting for something that had already burned to ash. When I finally drove home, it was past midnight again. He came in an hour later, trying not to wake me, but I was wide awake, pretending to sleep. When he slipped into bed beside me, I could smell her perfume on his shirt. I kept my eyes closed and whispered silently into the pillow. Tomorrow, I won't pretend anymore. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, my body stiff beside his. I could hear his breathing, deep, steady, peaceful. How could he sleep like that? How could someone lie so completely and then rest like nothing was wrong? By morning, my decision was made. I wasn't going to wait another night, another excuse, another late meeting. I needed to hear it from his mouth. He stumbled into the kitchen around 8, hair messy, rubbing his eyes. "Morning," he said, stretching. "You're up early." I didn't answer right away. I just stood there by the counter, holding the coffee mug I hadn't taken a sip from. When he finally looked at me, something in my face must have thrown him off, because his smile faltered. "What's wrong?" he asked. I took a deep breath. "Who is she?" His eyebrows knit together immediately, that fake confusion he always used when he was buying time. "What are you talking about?" "Don't do that," I said quietly. "Don't act like you don't know. The woman in the blue house, the one you've been spending your late nights with." For a second, he froze. His eyes flickered, just a tiny shift, but I saw it. Then he shook his head, forcing a small laugh. "You've got to be kidding me. You're tracking me now? Jesus, do you even hear yourself?" My throat burned. "I saw you, Mark. I saw you through the window." That shut him up. The color drained from his face, and for a long moment, the only sound in the kitchen was the hum of the refrigerator. Then he ran a hand through his hair and muttered, "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is," I said, my voice breaking despite how hard I tried to hold it together. "Tell me why you've been lying to me. Why you've been kissing another woman while I'm sitting here thinking you're working overtime to pay the bills." He leaned against the counter, jaw tight. "We've been having problems for a while, you know that. I didn't plan for it to happen. It just did." I laughed, sharp and bitter. "It just did. You accidentally drove to her house, accidentally slept with her, accidentally built a whole second life." He looked away. "You don't understand." "No, I do understand," I snapped. "You wanted out, but you didn't have the guts to say it, so you lied. You made me feel crazy, made me question myself while you were off playing happy family somewhere else." He didn't respond, just stared down at the floor like a child caught doing something wrong. And for a moment, I almost pitied him. Almost. Then he said quietly, "I didn't mean to hurt you." That was it. That was all he had. I set the coffee mug down, the ceramic clinking softly against the counter. "You didn't mean to hurt me, but you did. You didn't mean to ruin our marriage, but you did. You didn't mean to make me hate you, but congratulations, Mark. You did that too." He finally looked up, his eyes wet, but not from regret. From guilt, maybe, or shame. "I don't know what you want me to say." "I don't want you to say anything," I said, my voice shaking. "I just wanted the truth, and now that I have it, I can finally stop pretending this marriage still exists." He reached for me, but I stepped back. The look on his face, the realization that I wasn't bluffing. It was the first time in a long time I saw fear in his eyes. I walked past him, grabbed my keys, and stopped at the door. "You can pack your things while I'm gone," I said quietly. "And if you think you're going back to her house, don't worry. She'll find out who you really are soon enough." He started to say something, but I didn't stay to listen. When I got in the car, my hands were trembling, But for the first time in months, I could breathe. For the first week after he left, the house felt haunted. His things were gone. The shoes by the door, his coffee mug, his razor from the bathroom sink. But his presence clung to everything. I could still smell his cologne on the couch, still hear the sound of his laugh echoing in my head every time I walked through the living room. I tried to keep myself busy, cleaned, organized, went for walks, anything to fill the silence. But the nights were brutal. That's when the quiet got loud. That's when I'd catch myself checking the clock, wondering if he was still working late, then remembering exactly where he was instead. He texted once, the second day after he moved out. "I'm sorry for how it happened. I didn't mean to hurt you." I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it. No response. I wasn't giving him the comfort of pretending his apology fixed anything. Friends started asking questions. My sister wanted to come over, said she had a feeling something was wrong. I told her the truth. Her eyes went wide, then narrow. The kind of angry sadness only family can have when someone they love has been betrayed. "Do you want me to call him?" she asked. "No," I said. "Let him live in his lies for now." A week later, he showed up at the house unannounced. I saw his car pull up through the window, and for a split second, my stomach dropped. Instinct, habit, I don't know. He knocked once, then twice. When I opened the door, he looked smaller. Not physically, but something in his posture, his eyes. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. "There's nothing left to talk about." He sighed, ran a hand through his hair. "It's not working with her. I don't know what I was thinking. I made a mistake." The audacity of it almost made me laugh. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. Sleeping with someone for months is a choice. I thought I wanted something different," he said. "She was—" "Don't," I interrupted. "Don't say her name. Don't tell me about her. I don't care who she is." He nodded slowly, looking at the floor. "I just thought maybe you'd give me another chance." I looked at him for a long time. This man I'd loved, trusted, defended to everyone. The man who had smiled in my face while living another life behind my back. And for the first time, I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt relief. "No, Mark," I said softly. "I won't. You took something from me that I can't get back. Not just love, but safety. You made our home feel like a lie, and I can't build on top of lies." He tried to speak again, but I closed the door before he could. After that, I didn't see him for a while. I heard through mutual friends that the relationship with the other woman didn't last. Apparently, she found out he was still legally married, that he'd been promising her things he never planned to deliver. She threw him out. Sometimes I wondered if that made him feel what I felt. That moment when the floor disappears under you. But mostly, I stopped wondering at all. Healing wasn't pretty. Some days I woke up angry. Some days I felt hollow. But little by little, I started to reclaim pieces of myself. I rearranged the furniture, repainted the walls, bought new sheets. Small things that made the house mine again. Not ours, just mine. And with every change, I felt lighter. By the end of that month, I'd stopped checking the GPS app. I deleted it, actually, along with every trace of him that still lingered in my phone. It felt symbolic, like closing a door for good. But what I didn't realize then was that the real closure wouldn't come from deleting him. It would come from something else. Something I never saw coming. It took me almost 3 months to start breathing normally again. Not those short, anxious breaths that came with crying in secret, but the kind that come when you finally stop bracing for another blow. I didn't realize how much of my life I'd lived on edge until the silence became peaceful instead of painful. I started taking long drives on weekends. No destination, just me, the open road, and a playlist full of songs I hadn't been allowed to listen to because he didn't like them. I'd roll down the windows and let the wind sting my face. Sometimes I cried, sometimes I sang so loud it hurt my throat. Both felt like freedom. One afternoon, I stopped at a small cafe outside of town. The kind of place where the tables were mismatched and the air smelled like cinnamon and fresh coffee. I sat there reading, and this older woman at the next table smiled and said, "You look like someone who's just come back to life." It caught me off guard. I must have looked confused because she chuckled softly. "Takes one to know one," she said. We talked for a while. Her husband had left her 20 years ago for someone younger. "At first I thought he'd stolen my life," she said. "But the truth is, he just gave me back the parts of myself I'd forgotten." That line stayed with me. When I got home that day, I finally took down our wedding photo from the living room wall. Not out of anger, but because it no longer felt like my story. I replaced it with a picture I'd taken on one of my drives. A sunset over an empty road. Something about it felt right. Quiet, lonely, but endless. Mark tried to contact me a few more times after that. A birthday text, a "hope you're okay." I didn't answer. I didn't block him either. I just didn't engage. He didn't deserve my words anymore, not even the angry ones. Instead, I started writing again, something I hadn't done in years. Little journal entries, letters I'd never send, thoughts I'd never said out loud. Writing them made me realize how small I'd made myself in that marriage. How many times I'd swallowed my voice just to keep the peace. Now I talk back to the mirror. I say the things I was too scared to say before. I tell myself that I deserved better, and this time I actually believe it. The house doesn't feel haunted anymore. It feels lived in. It feels mine. There's laughter here again, sometimes just my own, but it's real. The other day, I drove past that blue house, 42 Westfield Lane. I hadn't planned to, but there it was, right on my route. His car wasn't there, of course. Someone else lived there now. I parked for a moment, looked at it, and waited for that old ache in my chest to come back. But it didn't. I just felt nothing. And that's when I knew I was free. Because real freedom doesn't come from revenge or closure. It comes from indifference, from no longer needing them to hurt like you did. When I drove away, I didn't look back this time. I didn't need to. That chapter was over. And for the first time in a long, long time, I was finally writing my own.